Welcome you guys to another episode of Above Average Black Men. We got a very special guest tonight, man. It's going to be joining us, and I've been kind of very super excited about this, man. We've had Chris Broussard on this show. We had a local sport, a famous sports writer, guys, man. So we had a bunch of guys, man, but not in your caliber. I got to say that. I got to say that, man. The depth of your work is amazing. So again, welcome to another episode of Above Average Black Men. Yours truly, Chris Pender Sr.
Chris Jr., as always, here to empower, inspire, and uplift the community. And as my father said, very special guest. Really extremely excited to get to know you and just kind of discuss your experience and, where you started to how you are right now. I know my dad mentioned off air before we got started. Of course, we're big basketball fans, really heavy in our family. So, again, it'll be nice to kind of talk to someone that's lived that life as a professional. I think a lot of kids kind of look up to professional athletes, and certainly in our community aspire to make it to that level of the NBA. But I don't think a lot of people really understand how hard it is to even get to that level, and even once you get there, stay there. So definitely a couple of things I would love to talk about tonight, and certainly where you are now as a motivational speaker. So, Dad, if you want to kind of take it away and give kind of the proper introduction here.
Yeah, I mean, you said it all. I mean, that's what I can say. We were talking, man, and the thing about Lowe's that kind of stood out to me, and I said it because when I first became a part of King, that's all I kept hearing about Lowe's. But it was ironic because they weren't talking about basketball. It wasn't until later in when somebody said, "Oh, you play ball," and they started showing me stuff. I was like, and then it was like some of your clips and highlights and some of the stuff they were saying about you. I said, "This was the real deal." This wasn't the guy that just was, just kind of made it for a cup of coffee and just kind of went on about his way. I was like, and then talking to you and some of the names you were mentioning, I was like, this guy was like, man, because you were first name basis for a lot of these guys. So that really stood out to me because they talked about your character first. Usually when you people that play athletes, everybody put the name out. This so-and-so, so-and-so. So that was amazing to me. So how did you go about, we talked a little bit, my first question is, how did you go about forging that reputation, not just the basketball player? Because you know what I mean. People found you play basketball, everybody wanted a piece of you.
Right. I think I mentioned earlier I lost, my mentor father, Mr. James Jones, recently over probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I left the summit early. I mentioned I left the summit early on that Saturday morning to make sure that I could get back to Mount Vernon and be a part of his memorial. And meeting Mr. Jones for the first time, at the Boys Club in Mount Vernon, now Boys and Girls, was a real treat. Actually, I had some success in basketball, but the crazy part was that I got cut from my first team. I really wasn't a basketball player. I didn't know I played in the playground. I thought I had a little skill, but when I went to the Boys Club, I didn't make the team, right? So I got cut, and I didn't even know what that meant to be cut from the team. I just know they said, look, you didn't make the team if your name wasn't on the list. And me and my best friend looked at the list, and we both weren't on there. So it was the craziest thing. We get cut, and my friend says, look, we're going over to the other club on the other side of town on Saturday. I'm like, nah, I'm not going over there to get cut again. But he forced me to get up on Saturday morning. We went over, and I met Mr. Jones's brother, CJ. He signed in. We were going downstairs. He was coming up. He said, you want to play basketball? Put us on the team. Right then and there. Put us on the team. We played that day. After the game, he said, look, I can't do anything with you. I'm thinking like, okay, he cut me. He said, I want you to come Monday, meet my brother James. I think you should play for his team. And so I met Mr. Jones when I was 11. And I was a real shy guy. And he kind of brought all this stuff out of me. And one thing about the Boys Club, they didn't care whether you were going to be an athlete, entertainer, any of those things. They just cared about one thing. In the future, will you be a good and productive citizen? And so he always stressed, no matter what, while you were playing, to have good character, to have the right attitude. And so since 11 years old, we learned to say yes sir and no sir and excuse me, and we learned to play basketball from the character development side of it, and so it just stayed with me, you know. It helped me. One of the things the Boys and Girls Club did too is that you had to participate. There was nothing you couldn't. You had to participate. You know, no choice, right? And so where I didn't want to speak, man, he made me dress up and go to all these social affairs. he would take all of us there, and then you would have to talk about your experience at the club. And so that kind of, as time went on, I just got a little bit better at it. And then basketball, my success in basketball kind of forced it. Like, you have to say something now. Right? You have to say something. You have to speak up. Right? And, you know, that's a powerful thing. And if I could say one more thing about how you know, the impact that having that foundation, how important that is as a little kid. I don't know if you see my book back there, From the Boys and Girls Club to the NBA, Life on the Narrow Road, right? And I talk about in the book, when my junior year, I was really playing well from my sophomore year to my junior year. And I got invited just before the season, a couple of games after the season started, by my professors. And they brought me in a room, and they said, "Hey, look, would you like to make some money?" Right? And I'm like $5,000 a month or something like that. And I was like, I don't know how. Right? And they said to me, well, you know, there are point spreads, and if you just miss a couple of shots.
I was thinking that, but I'm like, no, this isn't gonna go to sports betting.
Yeah. So I was like, first of all, I don't miss shots on purpose. That's number one. I'm trying to make every shot I take. And second of all, you know, I said, even if I was successful at what they were asking me to do, I knew I was wrong. And if something, all the character or the person you have become would be dismissed, right? What would my community think? You know, what would all the people that supported me over the years think? What would all the little kids think? I would tarnish all those things. So something that was laid in me at the very beginning stayed with me at the end. You know, along with the help of God. I mean, that's the number one thing, because I got saved at 14 in the 9th grade. So, yeah, and I just started building my relationship with God, and He helped me to sustain that foundational thing that was laid in me.
So just a few questions about your journey. I know you were from New York, and that's kind of where your basketball story began. Did you always have like the goals or aspirations to make it to the NBA? Kind of in your story with the Boys and Girls Club, it was just seemed like, you know, you wanted to be on the team and be a part of something, but was the NBA the ultimate goal?
I think so. I found, not that I thought I could play basketball well. I mean, like I was having any success at anything. But the thing that sparked me was, and I always say this in my speeches to kids around career day, and I always say to them, I hope you see this in your lifetime. I said, I seen the Knicks win 2 championships, right? I don't know if you're going to get to see it in your lifetime, but I did see it in mine. Right? And that was the thing that sparked me, man. I felt like I was athletic. The Knicks won the championship, and I saw the parade on television. It was in black and white, but I saw it on television. And every day the teacher used to ask me what I want to be when I grew up, and I would give, just based on what I was watching on TV the night before, I would give them an answer like, I want to be a doctor. But this day I came in really seriously. It was the first time ever that I ever wrote anything down, and I wrote on a piece of paper, New York Knicks, NBA. I taped it over my light, right? And so when I got up in the morning, I could see it. When I turned my light off, I could see it. And I went in and I told my teacher, I said, look, Miss Williams, I know what I want to be. And she said, what do you want to be? I said, I'm going to play in the NBA for the New York Knicks. Like that. And so she said, can you tell me what I need to do? And she said, yeah, you got to graduate elementary school.
Start there.
High school, you got to go to college. Right? I was like, what? Hold I was trying to get out of school. And then finally I got to gym and Mr. Grimes was there, and I said, Mr. Grimes, I know what I want to be when I grew up, and he had a tryout for the Knicks, not with the Knicks, but an NBA team. And he said, what? I said, well, I'm playing the NBA. What do I need to do? He said, got to graduate elementary school. Got to graduate middle school.
Cool.
Graduate high school. So that was the one thing. I always say, if you can find that one thing that is your niche, that motivates you. That was the one thing that motivated me. Once I started to find out I needed to go to class, I needed to get grades, I needed to have a good attitude, right? Once I started slowly finding out what those things were, now I had to I need to put it in play. And think about this, I wasn't on a team.
Yeah.
So I didn't know the process, but everybody thinks that they're gonna wake up one day and they're gonna be there, and it just doesn't happen. It's just and so I'm not trying to discourage anybody. I always tell everybody to go for their dreams, but only education ultimately creates the choice.
Right, and I feel like I love kind of hearing your story, and it sounds like they were kind of key players and individuals in your life that gave you a foundation for success, regardless if it was going to be basketball or not. Being a person of high character. And then the first thing they say to you about going to the NBA, graduate middle school, graduate elementary school. I think, with today's society and culture, they just see the glitz and glam of the NBA and think that they can just jump there immediately without taking care of a lot of the other things. I know I've coached kids, and that's something that you see. It's like, you've been playing basketball for 2 years, can barely run and dribble at the same time, but you don't even want to put in the work, but still think, hey, I'm going to go to the NBA. So definitely glad to hear that, you had positive influences and kind of individuals that kind of pointed you or steered you in the right direction. I saw that you went to West Virginia. How did you get there? I went to a school in the mountains. So it's like people ask me that all the time. So I'm very interested to know, like, what took you from New York to West Virginia?
Well, I want to read something first, because you're really modest about your skills. I'm listening to you say this over and over and over again, and I appreciate the humility. But it says, known as one of the most entertaining players to ever set floor on the Coliseum floor, and those more dazzled the crowds as a basketball player from 1977 to 1980. That's not, and at West Virginia, so that's not, Little House on the Prairie. And I'm saying it because that speaks to your character. And the point, even now, you're still talking about education. So now you can answer that. So I think that really speaks volumes to what we're talking about.
And so,
it's in my book also, man, because sometimes, things happen like being cut, right, and things like that, and the temptation or the test or the trial that happened when I was in college, right? And I was born in Plymouth, North Carolina. My parents moved here when I was 5 to Mount Vernon. And so after seeing David Thompson play and realize he was at North Carolina State, I wanted to go to North Carolina State in the worst way, right? Because David Thompson had that 44-inch vertical. I'm 6'1", 6'2", and I got like a 40-inch vertical. I'm getting off the floor. I'm thinking like I'm a miniature David Thompson. So I'm going there, and I'm getting letters like crazy. And then all of a sudden, man, the letters just kind of ran dry. Right, I was getting no more letters and so forth and so on. So it ended up, I got a counselor call me from the high school. He could come down sent somebody for me. I went down to his office, and there was a gentleman in there named Coach Jim Amick, right? And he said, "This is my good friend Jim Amick, right? He's from West Virginia University." And I was like, "Okay." And he showed me a film of the school and the team, and when Jerry West's picture popped up, I knew Jerry West. I didn't know him, but I knew of Jerry West, Mr. Clutch, and he went to West Virginia. You know what I'm saying, like that. And one of my guys who were before me was Earl Tatum, right? And Earl used to talk about Jerry West like he was his brother, right? And I was like, man, Earl talked about Jerry West, and they had that pure jump shot. They just could shoot. And I'm like, Jerry West wanted you to come for a visit. And, that's how I got to West Virginia. I went for that visit, went for the first visit, went into the Coliseum, seen 17, 18,000 people screaming, them shooting a musket gun and, and all that kind of stuff like that. Man, I just got so excited that I end up signing at West Virginia. And so the thing is that my coach, my senior year, took all those letters because he was trying to get a job. He was trying to get a coach's job. So he only gave me the letters that were offering him an opportunity to come with me. Right? And see how God works is that God sent Coach Amick, right? And he just set a screen and said that a good pick. And I ended up going to West Virginia rather than going to the school that the coach wanted.
Well, it worked out because I've been reading your bio and I've been checking you on the site, and the way they talk about you is like crazy. It's like, when you say somebody's entertaining the most exciting, that says a lot.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the parts of it is that Mr. Jones taught us fundamentals from the very beginning, right? But the one thing I like about him, he's way before his time. We did fundamental things all the way through, but he gave us opportunity because we were big Harlem Globetrotter fans. Right? So, he would give us a moment where going practice or something like that, he put on Sweet George Brown and we get to, do our drill and curly nil and throwing around the head and all that kind of stuff. So in the game, when we got up by a certain, you would call it showing off today. You could show people off, right, today. But when they got like 5 minutes to go and we up by a bunch of points, you hear them yell, showtime, like that. So so now you started throwing the ball around your neck, spinning the ball around, spinning like Earl Monroe. See, everybody said, you were saying earlier that kids look at the flash. Yeah. We all do.
Yeah.
Right? Because my two favorite players was Earl of Pearl and Walt Frazier and Pete Maravich.
Pistol Pete.
Pete could dribble. Earl was spinning. Clyde was throwing it around his back. And so that's what you gravitate to. You gravitate to that creativity, right? And so I started taking the spin that Earl had, the round the back that Frazier had, that little stuff that Pete Maravich was doing, and then Nate Tiny Archibald came out of nowhere and he started doing what he was doing. And I was just like, wow, people love this stuff, right? And then the fact that I could get off the floor, they was throwing alley-oops and you dunking them backwards, and I got to Morgantown, to the Coliseum. As a freshman, they threw that ball in the air, man. Them people went nuts. I was like, man, we rolling now. So, yeah, man, I loved it, man. Along with the fundamentals and being able to entertain, make people happy. That was one of what I felt like God wanted me to do.
So how did you balance your faith? Because it's funny because I was listening to a Devontae Smith, plays for the Eagles, interview, and he only went to one party the whole 4 years he was in college. He went to one. I didn't think that was possible.
Yeah.
He went to one.
I kind of wanted to ask that, what was the transition like?
He went to one what?
He went to one party. His whole 4 years he was in school, Alabama, he went to one party.
Well, I don't even know if that, Morgantown, man, I mean, they were mostly partying in the room and all, you had kegs. I wasn't used to, kegs and all that kind of. When I went there, man, Playboy had the penthouse at West Virginia as the #1 party in school, right?
Wow.
And so I was like, what? And I remember the first day, man, these guys said, man, you going out, man? You going out? I'm like, yeah. All right, let's go. We hitchhiked to downtown.
In West Virginia?
We hitchhiked in West Virginia, right? Some brothers hitchhiking, some white guys. So we get to this dingy house and we walk in and I'm looking and people with beer and there's kegs and people drinking wine and they doing all kinds of stuff in the room. And they had a big barrel in the middle of the thing with tubes hanging out of it, right? And they was smoking, hitting the tubes. The dog was hitting the tubes.
The dog.
Right? It was crazy, man. I walked in and I was like, what is going on? So I just walked straight, and there was a way out the back, and I hitchhiked my way back. And they woke up in the morning like, hey man, where'd you go? Man, I'm not doing that, man. So I didn't go to very many parties, right? I spent a lot of time. My teammates used to complain. I went out with them a couple of times, but for the most part, I was in my room, man. I did a lot of reading my word, a lot of praying, right? And because there was a lot of temptation. I mean, like it was like
I can only imagine.
I mean, I was standing outside. We had the dorm, right? It's like four hotels connected, right? And then right in the middle of it is where you eat dinner or lunch or breakfast, and you go to the cafeteria. And I was standing online, my first time standing online. I'm standing there, and there's a couple of black girls, and so girls came up to me and said, "Hey, you an athlete?" I was like, "Nah, not really." Like that. And it's like, "Oh, okay," like they just let me alone. So once I told them I wasn't an athlete, so we had a blue and gold game, and I was playing my freshman year, and I showed out, man. I was just dunking and all kinds of stuff like that. Next day at breakfast, it was like, "You lied to us." I was like, "Man, we were just looking for a job." I say that. I mean, I'm here to get an education. I'm here to play ball, right? And I love God, And they were like, "Oh, all right. But, yeah, there was a lot of once I was an All-American as a sophomore, man, all bets was off after that. I mean, it was just so much temptation, so much. I just stayed in the room, man. I mean, like, go to the courts. I knew where all the courts were. I knew how to get in them. I knew how to practice. I mean, I knew how to put in the work, man. And then I had to study, man, because, I mean, man, school wasn't easy, man.
Mm.
I mean, it was. I mean, I'm an average, I'm an average student, right? And because that's where my mindset was. I could have been a better student, right? But my mind wasn't 100%. I was just doing enough, to make it. And by the time I was a senior, me and my roommate came in together. He was a white gentleman. Who we played in the backcourt together. And we were sitting there because we knew it was our last game coming up. He said to me, I could have been a better basketball player. I could have really made, I think I could have had a shot at the NBA. I said, yeah, you could have. He wasn't putting the basketball time in that I was putting in, but he was doing it academically like that.
Mm.
Right? And then I said to him, you know what? Instead of being an average student, man, I could have been a good BA student. Right? If I had to put the same amount of time that I was putting in the basketball court into my books. Right? So, yeah, I mean, it is tough. It was a tough run. I enjoyed every moment of it. Like you said, I was in Morgantown. I mean, it had its moments.
So, I was going to ask, since you said you've been saved since you were 14, around 14 and 15, what was that relationship like growing up in team sports, telling your teammates, like, you can't go out or you can't do certain things because it kind of goes against what you believe?
That's my youngest son, David.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. What's up? Well, what happened was, the crazy thing, God is so good. I mean, he is really good. I mean, because my mentor, Mr. Jones, man, he loved the party. I mean, before I got saved, man, every Friday and Saturday, man, the club was hopping, man. I mean, and we were little kids. So once we got to like high school and junior high school, we was hanging out at the club and stuff like that. And they were upstairs partying, right? And we were on the trampoline downstairs, or you shooting ball down in the gym. We come up every now and then, man, and like, oh my God, let's go back downstairs, But he was a party guy, man. I mean, they loved the party, loved to have the time. And he had because he had 6 teams, all the way up to the senior team out of high school kids, all the way down. And so they loved the party. You can't do that stuff at the club now, but I mean, they used to get down, man. I mean, I'm telling you, they used to roll. So when I got I missed my Sundays at coming to the club on Sunday morning, right? And he was like, every Monday morning, he's like, where were you? I was like, oh no, I couldn't make it. And then finally the third Sunday, I told him I would have been going to church. And I said, this young lady invited me to church. And they said they had a basketball team that was all basketball. She was beautiful, basketball. I'm like, I'm going to church.
That's where I need to be.
3 times to play the game, to play for the team. And I'm like, are you going to be there? Yeah. And then that last Sunday, she invited a bunch of guys, right? They were all there at the first 2 Sundays and that third Sunday. Nobody showed up. It was just me. And the preacher was preaching he was just preaching to me, right? And I got up and I just gave myself to the Lord, got baptized, and I came back to the club and I told him, I was like, hey man, I got baptized, man, I got saved. He's like, what? I said, yeah, you ought to come with me. We need a coach, man, at the church. And the crazy thing, he got up and went with us on the following Sunday. Right? he got up and went with us. I guess he always checked on our grades. He always checked us on at home. So he wanted to make sure this was legit. So he went, right? And then he got saved.
Wow.
Right? And that was the whole turning point right there, man. Because he got saved, and he drank beer every Sunday. When he got home, whatever, the club or something, his mom used to always have beer in the refrigerator. I went home with him, and he went straight to the refrigerator, opened it up, wasn't no beer, right? And he said, Mom, where's my beer? He said, the Lord told me you didn't need it. And once he got saved too, right? It all changed. I mean, how he coached changed. We started having prayer, Bible study. We started doing all this stuff at the Boys and Girls Club. So yeah, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's how God works, man. Yeah.
So King was a natural fit for you then. So King was a natural fit for you then. Just roll right into King with Chris Broussard and.
Yeah, it was very natural, and plus, like yourself, the charge, to help young men, particularly, for me, there was so many. Like I grew up without my dad in my life. You see me play basketball at one time, right? Other than he's big games in the playground, man, 2,000 and 3,000 people, he would stagger through the crowd. And people would say they were your dad right there. And I just wondered if a number of young men were like myself. And so you get challenged to how to mentor, to do what Mr. Jones did. How do we coach kids? How do we mentor kids? How do we be involved in their lives? And so for me, it was always a charge at West Virginia to come back home every summer to host basketball clinics and camps, and to do the same even at West Virginia, to go to schools and stuff like that and talk to kids. And then making the pros, it opened up a bigger opportunity for me to make an investment back in the club and to purchase some things that they may have needed, and just be on a mission to help young men, and particularly those without fathers in their life.
Awesome. So ultimately, after your time in the NBA, what were some of your goals? Was it to always be a public speaker, or kind of coach, or go that route of kind of giving back in the way that people gave to you growing up?
I don't know. I was telling your dad earlier, man. We know how to get in a plane. We learn how to fly it, but we never learn how to land. He said, anybody that gets in a plane and don't know how to land it is a terrorist. So I didn't know how this was going to land. I mean, in terms of, because everything, that around, you love basketball, hate officials, you like officials, hate coaching, you ain't never gonna be no coach, all those things. And And so I didn't really know, other than I was getting the opportunity to go speak and do clinics. And we started a hoop school in Albany, New York, and we started doing sessions for kids using sports as a tool, as an instrument to help kids learn to read and improve their academic skills as well as their character through basketball, through sports. And so we started doing little things like that. And then I just got a call. First I got a call from Phil Jackson. He was my coach. I got a call for Phil Jackson. Phil was my assistant coach when I got drafted by the Nets.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to the CBA, I was playing the CBA for a few years. I was in 3 years with Phil Jackson. So I had some great coaches, George Call, Bill Musselman, and Phil Jackson.
Wow.
But the greatest coaches, Mr. Jones was always the greatest of all the coaches. And so I interviewed for the Chicago Bulls job when Phil got the job. I didn't have any coaches experience, and Jim Clemens, who played with the Knicks and played with Phil, he ended up getting the job. But Sat Sanders, I don't know if you know, and he played with the Boston Celtics. He was guy in charge of coaching. So he used to call me every single year about getting into coaching. But I had a passion, man, wanting to give back to young people. So I didn't really know how this ended. I ultimately went back and got my degree. You know, I graduated. And then, I get a call from Mr. Jones. He said, "Hey, we're looking for an executive director out here for Boys and Girls Club. Would you come back and do it?" Right. And I started researching it. And I'm like, wow, I get to go back, and an organization that, along with my mother, that saved my life, as well as God, I get to go back and save it. At least be a part of hope to save it. I was like, wow, that'd be a good thing. I prayed about that thing. And ultimately I ended up becoming the executive director for the Boys and Girls Club in Mount Vernon, and the executive director of development for the Boys and Girls Club in Mount Vernon for 27 years.
Sheesh. Oh man, it's funny how life seems like it goes full circle like that, like.
Mr. Jones said, "Do something." He was like, "Do for something." He said to me, I said, like, "If I ever make it to the NBA, man, what you want me to do?" He's like, "Man, find the kid and do for him what I did for you." And then I had the opportunity to be a blessing to hundreds of kids over the last 27 years.
Yeah, that's powerful. So let me ask, so when did you realize that you have potential to actually go to the NBA?
I always believe that there's some lights. You got to have lights. People that are in front of you, right? And so I grew up watching Gus Williams.
Gus.
He used to play, Gus Williams and his brother Ray Williams. Right, both of them played. Ray went to the University of Minnesota, and Gus went to USC. I was always intrigued by Gus because Gus was one of the most talented guys I ever seen. I mean, I've never seen anybody like that guy. He was my idol, and the crazy thing is that Gus didn't make varsity until he was a senior.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, he scored 500 points in his senior year. USC gave him a full scholarship. Right, he was an All-American 4 years at USC, and got drafted by the Golden State Warriors. Won an NBA championship with the Seattle SuperSonics.
Yeah, wow. Downtown Freddie Brown, Dennis Johnson, Marvin. Well, I know that team well.
30 points a game in the championship.
Yeah.
And then his brother Ray was with the Knicks.
Yeah.
Right, and I was like, wow, those are lights. What did you do? So every summer they come home, along with Earl Tatum, who played with the Lakers, who got drafted by the Lakers. Rudy Hackett, who got drafted by the New Orleans Jazz. Right, so you got 4 guys from Mount Vernon. Right, so and I'm in the gym with them as a high school guy. Right, and you just learn stuff. You just learn how to get beat up on. You learn how to get up. After you get beat up on, and you learn to accelerate. You learn to be a sponge, And in that way, you know, I always dreamed of being an NBA player since I was in 6th grade. But once other people made it that I knew, I was like, wow, I think I got a chance, right? And I had the talent to do it, right? And all I needed was a will to want to go to school and be a good student, right? And I was able to accomplish that too, because Earl used to write me all the time from college, and he used to tell me it wasn't easy. He's like, hey, it's not easy. You know, just like basketball wasn't easy. You got to work, right? You can do it, but you got to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was keeping it real with me, and that's what kept motivating me. And then to see those guys do it, and then being projected, you know, as a potential college player, and then a potential pro. Yeah, I mean, I seen them do it.
Right.
I was like, they balling like that? I can ball like that, you know. And then when I started competing with them, you know, it was no more kick the little kid over, right? When I started competing with them, I was like, oh yeah, if they in there, I'm in there too. We all going in there together, you know. And then right after me comes Rodney and Scooter.
Yeah.
You know, then I got a chance to train in the Boys and Girls Club. I got to train Ben Gordon. So
Tough
yeah,
guard.
he was my kid that I had from 7th grade.
Okay.
You know, yeah. So I had
Yeah,
Ben. And Ben did work, won the national championship, man, and got the 3rd pick in the NBA draft.
Yeah. Oh man.
So I mean, yeah.
So actually, again, I feel like that's funny how it kind of comes full circle. Ben Gordon was tough. Definitely feel like that was one of my favorite guards to watch at a point in time when I started coming up and playing basketball as well. I'm interested to hear a little bit more about your book, The Boy and Girls Club to the NBA. So what led you to write that, you know, and kind of give us an overview or synopsis of what the book's about?
Well, my good friend, guy I grew up with the club with me, he said, man, he had written a book. He's like, oh, you know to write a book? I was like, man, don't nobody want to hear my story? Like that. And he kept bothering me for about 2 years. And I was going through this, whatever I was going through. And I heard the Lord say, write the book. I was like, oh, all right. The Lord said, write the book. Means that there must be somebody out there that want to hear the story, you know. So we wrote the book. And, kind of focuses around, it's like it chronologizes my life. Mm-hmm. You know, and I started out with that everybody has a gift and a purpose, right? God gives everybody a gift, and there's a purpose in which He gave a gift for. Right now, basketball was not my gift, right? It was one of my gifts, but it wasn't my main gift. My main gift was that I had the ability to communicate with people through sports, right? And so my first chapter just kind of starts out with my family, right? And, I say everybody got a family. Everybody got dysfunction in their family, but they still your family, right? And I go through that process of domestic violence, being a little kid, watching, not listening to my dad, beat my mom all the time and holding my brothers and sisters. I go through that. And what I didn't realize was that in that experience that I didn't know I had early childhood trauma until I wrote the book. I didn't know it was still there, and so going to the club and going to school and playing ball, things that helped me manage to get through whatever I was dealing with in terms of the trauma. But as I wrote the book, man, as I was writing that chapter, I couldn't stop crying. And then I started to think, like, man, first thought, like, what was my mother thinking? And then I was thinking, like, what did my brothers and sisters think? And when I first started the podcast, right, I started with my family. They were like the test run. I'm gonna talk to my brothers sisters, and then I'm gonna get to my mothers and my aunts, and I'm gonna talk to them. And the interesting thing was, all these years, yes, my mom experienced it. You know, she experienced that, and I always was intrigued and always blessed that she was able to manage to take care of 4 kids, right? Raise 4 kids and still look happy, you know, and still loved us unconditionally, you know, and was at every event. We were at every game, right? I could hear my mother, man, push that shot up, man. That's terrible. Play some defense. So my mom's like my hero, but I was really happy to know that when I interviewed my brothers and sisters, that they didn't remember any of that about the domestic violence. So they were not experiencing the trauma that I was. And for me, that was good. You know, that they didn't have to live a life. Because my sister was the youngest, and she adored my father. You know, and I thank God that I was able to forgive him. I think we were able to turn a corner, and I got to see my father and how he would have treated us through my grandkids, through my kids, through his grandkids. Once my kids came, my father was doing everything for me. You know, I was like, okay, but I didn't know the trauma he was going through. So I don't, as a black man at that particular time, right? What he was experiencing, and he didn't know how to direct that energy of what he was experiencing. So he just turned into his family. You know, started, you know, the whole fighting and beating and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but I mean, I was glad that my mom allowed it to happen, allowed us to have that relationship with them. And so at the end, it ended with, you know, as far as our relationship.
Can you hold the book up so everybody can see? Grab that book and hold it up, man.
Yes, sir.
Grab the book and hold it up so people can see the book, man. Is it on Amazon, or how can we get it?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
Right.
Barnes and Noble. Yeah, you can get all of them. Yeah, I think you can even get an e-copy too as well. Yeah.
Awesome. So I heard you say that you have a podcast as well. Is that kind of in tandem with the book? Is that something that you were inspired to do after kind of writing the book? It kind of was like, hey, next step is to write a podcast and have some of those conversations. Like, how did you come about the next steps there?
Well, we had just entered a guy had said to me, man, you ought to do a podcast. And I'm like, what? And then it was 2019, September 2019, and I was doing a vision board. Right, I was asking myself a question: am I going to retire at the Boys and Girls Club, or was there anything else I wanted to do? And so I started writing a list. You know, I said, okay, I graduated in communications and public relations. What can I do with that? I would love to tell my story. Right, I would love to get out, use my book, and tell my story, and see if I can help other people get unstuck, right, and help other people grow. And so I wrote down, you know, motivational speaking, maybe doing some consultant work, and all those different things, right? And all of a sudden, you know, at the very bottom, of course, the guy told me, he said, do a podcast. So it's all around communication. And I didn't know that I was going to go in negotiation with my board members in December of 2019. They started negotiating, and it didn't go the way. I mean, after all these years, man, that I had put in, man, all the time I had put in, man, I just felt like, it was just time, man, to, you know, the way they did not respect the fact that I had sacrificed all these years, man. It was just, to me, it was disrespectful. And then when I prayed about it, right, I prayed about it, and I started thinking, like, I had just wrote down some stuff I wanted to do, you know. And so when I prayed about it, the only thing I had peace with was leaving. You know, and actually in my book, Denzel and his wife Pauletta wrote my foreword,
Ooh,
right, to the book.
that's
And
awesome.
they said in the book that that's how I got the name of the podcast called The Blueprint, right? Because his wife said that every athlete, every business person, every person should read this. This is like it's like a blueprint, right? And that's how I got the name of the podcast, the Blueprint Podcast, because she said it, right? And so yeah, it was crazy, man. And then I really wanted to have some something to give back, and express what I experienced. And it says at the bottom, the narrow road. My favorite scriptures is broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many find it. But narrow is the road to the gate that leads to life, and only a few find it. And so many times God had put people in my path to keep me on. When I think about Mr. Jones, I think about Coach Jim Amick. I start thinking about all these people that God put in my life to keep pushing me towards that narrow road. That kept me on that narrow road. And because, man, that broad road, that wide gate is a monster, right? And I was in it, from high school to college, with just so much tests and trials and temptations. But man, I'm thankful to the people that God placed in my life, and I'm thankful to God, right? How he blessed me to get through that, because you can't. My testimony is, I am who I am as a man because of God, as a father, as a husband because of God, and without Him, I don't know who I would be.
So is this like mainly a faith-based podcast, a motivational podcast, or do you just discuss various topics that's going on in the world?
Well, yeah, it deals with the 7 spheres of influence, right? I believe that, like I said earlier, God gives us gifts and purpose, right? My purpose was to go and impact and influence the sports world. And then eventually I started to impact the now the community of the Boys and Girls Club. It's like Dawn Staley was saying the other day, how God uses her in this sphere of influence to impact women and so forth and so on. We sometimes try to run. We think that if we can just get everybody in the church. No, we're supposed to get people in the church to equip them to go into their sphere of influence so they can have impact, right? And so we're supposed to go into business, and we're supposed to go into politics, and we're supposed to go into education and all these other spheres of influence so that we can have impact, right? And so mine happened to be sports, and I didn't want my book. When I wrote my book, I didn't want it to be religious. I didn't want it to be Christian. I wanted people to read it and say, you know what, man, that guy got a relationship with God. I wanted them to see it. Not me just talk about it, how God had blessed me, right? And so the podcast is the same thing. I focus on 3 questions: the importance of family, importance of education, and importance of faith. Now, everybody don't always have faith. I mean, but I envisioned, asking those questions when I first started. Way before I started the podcast, I always said, man, I'm going to interview LeBron James and ask them about his faith. I mean, they can say no. People got different types of thoughts of what they think about faith. Yeah. Denzel, I don't know if you see my podcast with Denzel. I mean, he just let it all hang out. I mean, it was so crazy, man, that he just let it go. I don't know if his agent and stuff was like, what did he say? I mean, and JB Smooth, man, when I asked him about faith, man, everybody always said he went to church. When they grew up, when I was young, we went to church. We got faith. faith that we get in my job, and people got different versions of what they think faith is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But at least I get to ask the question.
And that's important to see. It's important to see, because
Yeah.
I feel like people that generally as fans, we kind of take that stuff for granted, or we just kind of look at them in that one way and not even necessarily know sometimes that their faith is a big part of what has even gotten them to where they are at this point in time in their careers. Can you actually kind of share with the people, where can they find your podcast at? Is it video to this podcast as well, or is it just mainly going to be audio that people can kind of find and listen to?
Well, it's video, so it's Lowe's More the Blueprint on Facebook and YouTube, right? And they stay on there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my interview with Isaiah Thomas, and there's been so many. Phil Jackson, my interview with Phil Jackson, we had a great conversation about faith, and because his father was a Pentecostal minister. I don't know if you knew that.
Did not know that.
So that's why he got the Zen master. He put all that stuff. And he just stopped mixing stuff up. But it's a great interview with a lot of great people over the last 4 years.
Do you have a favorite interview that you've done thus far?
Man, it's been so many. Denzel was one of my favorites, because I didn't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
And because the thing is, I asked him, he said, "You doing a podcast?" I said, well, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm gonna come on there. I was like, "You are?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna come on there." I was like, "When?" They said, "Okay, I'm gonna get back to you tomorrow." And he did. He got back. He gave me a date, and he came on, and he was, I don't know, he was doing some movie, so he looked like he was in a fight or something. But no, it was great interview. I mean, that was great, and I've had so many great. Hill Harper, you guys know Hill Harper?
Yeah.
Yeah, the actor. He was great because his son just came in out of nowhere. I mean, and then he started giving quotes. His son looked like 25 quotes. He's 4 years old. He was giving these amazing quotes, man. I was like, wow, the whole shoot, and it was great, man. But I had so many great interviews.
Yeah.
It's just been wow. It's just been great. I'm so unexpected, because I didn't know how long I was going to be doing it.
I mean, for me, I was already impressed, because I was on the show. Now I'm more impressed because I think we talk a lot about faith, and it's easy to have faith when everything is going well.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to wake up in the morning, because you know everything is going to fall in place to have faith. But it's those trials and tribulations, man. When you talk about some of the stuff you faced as far as temptation and stuff, and I think as especially as Black men, that story needs to be told. It needs to be told, right. And it needs to be told as much as possible. I think it's not told enough because they recognize us for the negative stuff we do.
Mm-hmm.
They recognize us if we believed in some crazy stuff. But to hear somebody talk about faith in Jesus Christ and be sold out for it, and do it in such a way where I can hear it, it's real. It's not that you read a bunch of scriptures before you got on here, you knew. And I think that's what we need more of. And I think, again, I talked about it earlier. That was one of the things that kind of really intrigued me, because the first couple of times I heard about you had nothing to do with basketball. People usually, like when people talk about Chris Broussard, ESPN is the first thing. When the first thing came on about was ESPN, not him. But with you, it was about character. And to me, I'm equally impressed or more impressed because it is your faith. And you're naming these people, man, like they everyday people we pass in the street.
Denzel,
but the way you're doing it in such a humble way, and that's what our young men need to see. Our young men need to see that that you can be strong, and you can still have this faith. So, and I think again, go ahead.
I think the thing is that I think there's such the enemy is such adamant about us hating. We don't hate people, right? I mean, there may be some people who use their faith or their Christianity. I don't call it faith. They use their Christianity or their religion as a way of showing hate, right? But when I think about being a Christian, I think about faith. I don't think about hate or judging, right? I think about loving, right? So whatever you choose to be, whatever, you choose your lifestyle, whatever you choose to be, I'm required to be a gentleman, right? I'm required to love, right? And I'm not going to be disrespectful, right? And so the thing is, at the end of the day, we all get to choose, right? We all have the power of choice.
Yes.
So, but I'm not going. You can't throw your lifestyle on me, and I'm not trying to throw my lifestyle on you, right? And so the book and the podcast is about subliminally, right? You feel the love. I hope when you're doing it, you feel like, oh, this is genuine, and we're having genuine conversations, and then people just started bringing out about faith. I mean, you don't know when you see somebody, you don't know they lost both mother and father, or they lost loved ones, but yet you still see where they are,
right? And
now they have to overcome what they've been through to get where they are, and I think that's what people see in the interview, right? What? I didn't know that. I didn't know all that stuff. We just think that, man, these people just grew up and they just out of nowhere, but these people. And Curtis Martin's interview is like the most profound interview. I mean, to walk in on his grandmother with a knife sticking out her chest, man, and hear him tell the story, about that, and to grow up and live with that, and then to watch what God did with his life, man, you can't beat that.
No. That's a tremendous story, and I feel like it's been certainly a lot of gems that have been dropped here today. We did see some questions in the chat, just kind of inquiring, asking about the title of the book. So I want to make sure that we say that again: From the Boys and Girls Club to the NBA. And definitely will be checking out the podcast a little bit more frequently myself. It sounds like you've had some tremendous, great guests and episodes, and really eager to kind of see or hear if you have any guests that are coming up in the future that you're able or willing to share with us today.
Well, I got a young lady. She's doing I think she wrote a book called The Seed, and she got an upcoming play called Love Conquers All. Keisha, I think Keisha. I might have to look her up.
You got time to shoot.
Well, I'm flattered to be. I was on the show, so I was in such great company, man. I want to say.
now he's gonna be like nonstop. I was on the show with Denzel.
Yeah, I was flattered, man. Like, hey,
Jackson.
Hey, I like to get. I reached out to Lawrence Funderburg.
Yeah.
I'm working on Lawrence. In the future, I think I'll have Eton Thomas. Remember, he played with the Wizards.
Yeah.
He had the heart conditions, stuff like that. Man, he's big on the advocate for particularly black men. He got a wonderful book out regarding fathers. Yeah,
that's awesome.
I interview anybody. I'm gonna get LeBron James. I mean, some stuff with LeBron.
But I believe you.
Stuff with LeBron, man. So he knows. Yeah.
I believe you. I believe
you. We heard it here first.
But we need more of this. As we close, we need more. And I'm, they tease me all the time, man. We need more people who are not ashamed of their faith. More people who wear it on their sleeve, but not to the point where we making people feel bad. That's always the thing that kind of troubles me. We make people feel bad. You have this kind of this
easy going.
You disarm people. Yeah, because it's just like, like now, I feel like we've known each other for years. We just having this conversation, and I think that is so needed. That is so needed, man. So I greatly appreciate you, man. We got to get you again, man. Definitely be tuning in your show. Had a great time when I was there. Matter of fact, you got me looking in the StreamYard for our show. So.
I want to thank you too, because many men need to see men like you guys. And that's why I speak so highly of the King movement, and more about the fellowship, right? And just can't wait to get together. I love the worship. I I love all the sessions, but seeing other men, other brothers, when we get together, man, and it's not about title.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to tell you who I am and what I've done. You know, brothers come and hug me. They don't even know me, hugging me, and I'm hugging them, and we're just having conversations, and we get to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now maybe some down the line they say, "What you did? What?" You know, because I've been plenty of. I haven't played in one of the rumbles. Haven't played in a tournament. You know, at all. I haven't picked up a basketball at the. No, I haven't touched the basketball. Well, I haven't played any basketball.
I don't want to talk about.
One time I went to the leadership competition in Richmond, and me and Pastor Duncan got out there because he played for VCU. He was an All-American at VCU, right? He has his jersey retired, and I'm in the Hall of Fame at West Virginia. So we got out there, and I started doing some stuff. But you know, the one in Philadelphia when we went out that time, man, and I think I made like 25 straight 3-pointers, man. I was like, I just got in the rhythm, man. I was like, oh yeah, you know. But other than that, I hadn't touched the basketball.
He said, other than that, that's 25 years old. Other than that, I haven't touched the basketball.
No, I'm not saying like, you know, like I'm in the rumble, you know. But, I like to shoot, so I can.
Me too.
Well, I'm trying to talk them into going to DC. It's in DC next year, so I'm gonna try to talk both of them into going to DC. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah,
DC's gonna be awesome, man. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to
have a good time. Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you're gonna build relationships, man. You'll never forget those guys.
No, so definitely, I'm anxious to, you know, make my way or trip down there to DC. I'm retired. I played in the last basketball one, so I don't want to speak of it. But we definitely appreciate you, Mr. Moore. It's been, you know, quite a pleasure to be able to speak to you and get to hear about some of the things that you have going on. And like my father said, we really hope that we can either have you back on or at some point in time, like we would love to meet a lot of our guests in person. So definitely thank you for your time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we definitely gonna connect because right about now I'm working with about 70 men. So we got to figure something out, man. I think your story is something they need to hear. Definitely,
awesome, man. Yeah,
well, yo, definitely, bro. Appreciate you. Definitely gonna keep in touch, man. Definitely be tuning in, man. So we're gonna thank everybody. Go ahead.
Thanks for the invite, man. I appreciate it.
Nah, thank you, man.
I've enjoyed the conversation.
I was blessed by
Even
it.
though I was doing most of the talking.
Nah,
this is about you.
It went the way it was supposed to go.
Yeah.
It went through it. So, any parting words you want to share with us, man? Before we close out.
No, just keep doing what you guys are doing, man. We need to see, you know, sometimes, our women need as much attention as that we can give them, and more, right? And sometimes Black men just get lost.
Yeah.
Right? We can talk about animals, we can talk about women, we can talk about everything. But when it comes to Black men, there ain't a whole lot of people talking about, you know, how we impact Black men, how do we help them get stronger, better, how can we support them? Not a whole lot, and it's tough. Like when you want to grow a podcast or grow a business, it's tough getting the things that you need, the resources that you need to be able to do it. So keep our men in prayer. Right, and that they would become the kind of men, and as we move forward, they become the kind of men that will find, you know, their partner, you know, their soulmate, and think about building families and leaving legacies. And that's my final thing.
It was spot on. Spot on.
Great having you. Definitely be tuning in. We'll look forward to continuing this conversation at some point, man. Definitely got to see you before DC. It's a long way away, bro.
Yes, sir. Yeah, let's do it.
Yo, please tell the family I said, hey, man, and peace and blessings, bro. Right? You guys got it, man. This is one of the better shows here. My man, Lowe's Moore. We talk to you later, man. Peace.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
No, I can't get it going, man. We done.